So this place near my office makes really, really good Italian sandwiches and they deliver to our apartment. So I get them on the weekends sometimes. And the sandwich that I like has some spice, but like for whatever reason today was like the spiciest it's ever been. And I literally just bit it. And the thing that kills me about eating spicy things is, I think you know this, but I don't react to milk very
I was
well.
gonna say you can't have milk.
Nope, I just like
Killer.
sit with it and suffer. It's highly unfortunate.
That's terrible. I'm sorry.
So I'm sitting and suffering.
Can't have macadamia nut milk. It's not gonna help.
I think it's only dairy that helps, right?
I'm not even sure that dairy helps. Like from a food science background, I think it might be a myth, but
You know,
at least
now
makes
that I'm
you
saying
think it
this
helps.
out loud, yeah, I've never done a lick of research on this topic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually know how to solve for spiciness. I know that wasabi spice doesn't really need a solve, or like mustard spice doesn't need that much of a solve because it's like there and gone. But that pepper spice, man, it stays.
Okay, so like the thing about dairy from my limited days as a chef is that it actually enhances flavor. So, like dairy is a very good extraction agent if you want to like steep mint in dairy or just steep anything in cream. The cream will extract that flavor very well because it has so much
Interesting.
fat in it. I don't know how that could possibly make things less spicy. Maybe this has nothing to do with each other. But in my mind, that doesn't quite add up. I don't know. If you're a food scientist, let us know.
Yeah, let us know how to combat spice. But with science, not just
Yeah, with
milk
science.
is supposed to fix it.
I don't want to hear what your grandma used to do for you. No offense. I'm sure she was a lovely lady, but this is an evidence-based podcast, as we've previously mentioned.
Yeah, except I didn't bring evidence this time. I only brought symptoms, unfortunately.
I know we've talked about this, and maybe this is the second time in 2 episodes we've talked about it, but this is a nice segue. I've been seeing a lot of clips online with quotes from certain books that I've recently read and finished, and they're like, hey, this person said this, so that must mean XYZ. And I'm like, that quote does not exist. That quote is not in that book. Has anyone fact-checked this? Like, what's going on here, Bookstagram Book Talk? Like, we're just making shit up at this point.
Literally. And it's actually kind of scary because it gives you like a microcosm for how misinformation happens. But like, there are multiple quotes that I am sure somebody on TikTok just made like a slideshow of like these quotes that aren't real. And it just like went viral. And now everybody thinks those quotes are real. Like, they're not. They never happen.
There's a very specific quote in Crescent City. I'm not going to say what it is, but if you guys are on Book Talk or Bookstagram, I think you know what the quote is. And it never happens.
It never happened.
It never happens. It is not in the book. It does not happen. And I just want to scream from the rooftops. Give me the page number. Thought. Give me the page number.
I was like, should I report these posts for misinformation? It is misinformation.
No, but you do see how it happens. How it happens. So I've seen at least 10 reels in the past day on this exact topic, probably because I've been researching this topic too. And I'm like, this simply does not occur. It simply doesn't happen.
Nope, it does not.
Anyway, check your sources. That is the key to this podcast.
Freaking sources, guys.
Because not everyone always brings receipts that we do. Anyway, hi, I'm Abby.
I'm Ronnie.
And this is Dragons in the Details, a fact-based romantasy deep dive podcast. If you're new here, welcome. We are kicking off season 2. Our deal is we pick apart our favorite fantasy series over the course of an undetermined number of episodes. If you were with us last season where we covered the Empyrean, you know that we truly mean undetermined. We do not know how many episodes we're going to do. We usually start with an idea in mind and then things spiral and snowball. A lot of times because you, our listener community, gets back to us and tells us what you want us to talk about, which is really awesome. We really love that. So keep up the good work. We are launching a new season, as I just mentioned. So this is our second episode of our second season, and we are covering A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. The entire series, to be clear, not just the first book. So we are covering ACOTAR. We're super excited about it. We recorded a little reactions episode that we ran last week. This is our first deep dive. So we'll get into that kind of a bit about what this means, but a quick disclaimer. These episodes contain spoilers for the entire A Court of Thorns and Rose series. So we do not do the chapter by chapter read along. If you are here, you should have finished everything up through A Court of Silver Flames. If you have not finished everything up through A Court of Silver Flames, this is your spoiler warning. You will be spoiled. Don't be upset when you're spoiled. These books have been out for a while at this point, so hopefully you've read all of them.
Also, one thing we forgot to do in the last episode, this podcast is still rated R.
This podcast is rated R. Yeah, I was just about to say that. We didn't say that last episode, and we definitely cursed. This podcast is rated R. because of both the contents of these books and who we are as people. We like to curse. We get enthusiastic about things. Obviously, there's sex in these books. Sometimes we talk about sex, sometimes we don't. But yes, this podcast is certainly rated R. In terms of the Maasverse, what we're going to do is a portion of this episode, the largest portion of this episode, will be ACOTAR only. So if you haven't read the further Maasverse, that's totally fine. You can listen to our ACOTAR only portion of this episode. And obviously this season, the focus is on ACOTAR. So that will be the majority, the meat and potatoes of the episode. However, at the end of the episode, we will have a larger Maasverse section. So if you've only read ACOTAR, you haven't read Crescent City or Throne of Glass, I would recommend stopping at that point. Don't listen any further. You will get spoiled and it won't really make sense, most likely. So that's your disclaimer there. We will also put a spoiler warning in that point as well. So don't listen anymore. This is no longer good. This episode, our first deep dive episode, we are starting with everyone's favorite character. I'm totally kidding. Tamlin. And you guys might be wondering, why are we starting with Tamlin? Because he kind of not super relevant by the end of Silver Flames. So we are starting with Tamlin because Tamlin is kind of our introduction into this Fae world. He's the first Fae that we meet. Obviously, he's very pivotal in this story's overall progression and arc. So we thought it would be very fitting for our first deep dive episode to also start with Tamlin. Other than that, as you heard in our rant at the beginning of this episode, we come with receipts. So we have quotes to back our stuff up. We can provide page numbers, chapter numbers. We very heavily rely on quotes. We very heavily rely on things that we've actually verified. We are a fact-based, evidence-based podcast here. And you can follow along if you're skeptical, too. If you don't believe what we said, we will give you the quote. We often read them out loud. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Ronnie, you want to do announcements?
Yeah, sure. For those who listen to our Empyrean series, we did basically deep dives by character. We will still be doing deep dives this season, but given how complex this plot and world is and how much goes on, we might structure things slightly differently. So instead of maybe doing a full character deep dive, we might focus on a specific aspect or event. So instead of, a Rhys deep dive, for example, we might do Rhys family tree. Like, that's just an example. We haven't necessarily set our entire episode structure yet, but that's where we're leaning, because we don't want to necessarily confine ourselves to, say, a 3-part character deep dive, which very well could happen with some of these characters. So this will let us go deeper on a topic while still bringing in all of the details from all of the books. Anything else?
Great. No.
Cool. Should we dive in?
Let's deep dive. Oh, right. We have a fun question. Sorry. Let's not deep dive yet. Ronnie, how did you feel about Tamlin when you first read it?
Okay. Is this question first read book 1 or first read the series?
It's book 1.
Book 1. I mean, I kind of remember thinking, oh, Tamlin is the Fae version of the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And I wanted to like Tamlin more than I honestly actually did. Like, I definitely liked him, but I was like, he's kind of like, he's treating Feyre like she's a little bitch and not like somebody who kept her entire family alive for all of their preteen years. But I felt like he was a character that we were supposed to hate and then come to love, is how I felt about Tamlin the first time I read that book. What about you?
Well, you know that I knew about Rhys when I read ACOTAR book 1 for the first time.
We never published that recording. For our listeners, we have something in the vault that we just never put into the universe, but Abby told me that she knew about Rhys before this whole thing started, and I was so mad.
Yeah, so it was always kind of spoiled for me. I knew that Tamlin wasn't the guy she ended up with. I thought he was kind of a dud. I told you in this unreleased episode, my favorite thing that Tamlin does is when he bites Feyre's neck on Kalam.
Of course.
That is my favorite thing that he does. Like, finally, you're fucking doing something.
You're interesting.
Around. You're interesting. So when I first read it, I was like, he's fine. Like, I understand that he is physically attractive. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. And then the second time I read it, I was like, well, there's so many things wrong with this man. Mm-hmm. He's actually fucking terrible. Like, I literally wrote 16 times just in the beginning of ACOTAR, red flag. His claws are always coming out. There's always this undercurrent of rage that he cannot control, right? He literally says at one point to Feyre, if you spot one, even if it looks harmless but makes you feel uncomfortable, pretend you don't see it, don't talk to it. If it hurts you, the results wouldn't be pleasant for it or for me. You remember what happened to the Naga. So what he's saying here, this is about like other Fae creatures. What he's saying here is, if Feyre sees something that scares her, he will have to kill it and he won't enjoy killing it. And it's like his rage is so out of his control. Like his anger is so out of his control that he would literally have to kill something that threatens Feyre. And I'm like, unless there is some kind of magical explanation for that, which we have not gotten yet, I just think that's completely unacceptable behavior. Like, I think that is like abusive. I think that is an anger management problem. Like, you can't control your emotions. Like, and let's not forget, he not once but twice explodes at Feyre and literally causes furniture to be flung in her direction. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I just have no fucking time for this guy.
I mean, the fact that Rhys has not killed him is a testament to Rhys's self-control.
Yeah. So that was a fun answer to that question. All right, should we deep dive?
Let's deep dive.
All right, Ronnie, what are Tamlin's powers? What can and can't he do?
So Tamlin has several interesting powers here. I'll start with he has what I'm coining classic High Lord magic, which just seems like it's, you know, controlling physical things, glamoring, floating things over. All of the High Lords seem to have this magic.
Can anyone else glamour? What other High Lord do we see glamour?
Well, definitely Rhys. We know
definitely
Dracon,
Rhys, but
Dracon does.
Who does Dracon glamour?
Credia.
Okay, well, I also think that Dracon's a daemati, but we can get into that later.
It's uncommon, but I don't think it's daemati specifically.
We'll get into it.
Maybe it is. He also has a shifting power, and the shifting power I think we've seen 5% of personally, at least seen with our own eyes. So he himself shifts into his beast form most easily, and we think that these High Lords have this beast form. We know Illyrian has one, we know Rhys has one, and we know that Tamlin has one. But we also know that he shifted his men into wolves, and specifically, Lucien has said that he can shift us into other shapes if need be. So we think he can shift himself and other people into basically anything. In fact, I'm 99% certain he can, because Feyre's shifting power came from him. So if she can shift herself into anything, so can he. Like, she shifts herself into Ianthe and gives herself wings on the reg. Wings. So yeah, so he can shift into anything, which we have not seen, but that's probably because we wouldn't, right? So we'll talk more about that. He has a really strong ability to implement lasting glamour, and I think there's an open question that I'm sure you're going to get into about whether glamoring is just mind work, is being daemati. But the specific glamours that we've seen from him that we know are attributed to him are related to when Feyre is taken by him. He glamours her family's memories, is the way that he describes it. So they have no memory of a beast bursting into their cottage, and they think a long-lost, very wealthy aunt called you away to aid her on her deathbed. They know you're alive, you're fed, you're cared for, and they also know that there's rumors of a threat. So he altered their memories. And Feyre says this in no uncertain words. She's like, you altered their memories, and gets mad about it. And he specifically says, no, I glamored their memories, like putting a veil over them. I was afraid your father might come after you. So he's able to glamour, and we've seen glamoring done in much more powerful ways, like hiding entire cities, entire armies. It's pretty impactful power.
I do want to add a couple things about glamoring and the shape shifting though. Right. So he can shift into a beast. He can shift other people. You talked about Feyre shifting into Ianthe. Is that how you say it?
I think her name is pronounced Ianthe.
Ianthe. Okay. That presumably means that Tamlin can also shift into other people.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen this, as you said, or we wouldn't know if we had seen this. But the door is open for Tamlin to shift into other people. The door is also open for Tamlin to shift other people into other people.
Yep.
Right. Might be important later when we're talking about a certain murdered mother and sister. We're not sure. But that door is open where presumably if Tamlin can shift his men into wolves, he could also shift them into looking like other people. Let's just keep that door open. I want to talk about the glamoring, not yet with the daemati thing, but spoiler alert, I am going to make an argument that Tamlin's a daemati. He not only glamours Elaine and Papa Archeron's memories, he glamours Feyre in real time. Right? So first of all, she does not see the spring court. She sees almost no one, right? So she sees Alice and she sees her as a normal human woman instead of the kind of tree-like creature that she is. Mm-hmm. He glamours Feyre. She sees the adder. How do you say it? Adder?
I say the adder. Yeah.
The adder. She sees the adder. She paints the adder and doesn't realize what she's seen
Yeah.
because she like, it's like he's literally going into her brain and like cutting the synapse there, right? So like her
Yeah.
eyes see it and her brain clearly like registers it, but like she cannot form that memory,
Yep.
right? Like that's insane. And that very much tracks with what Rhys does later with the armies, right? Where people just don't see the armies. So I think it's more powerful than just, oh, he went into Elaine and their father's mind and just tweaked a little memory. It's like he is actively doing this in real time with
Yeah.
diminished power, right? Because we
Yeah.
know his power is nowhere near what it is. And he's completely changing Feyre's point of view every day at all times. So that's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
And he like maintains this for not just Feyre, for not Nesta, because it doesn't work on Nesta. We'll
Doesn't
talk about
work
that
on
later.
Nesta. Yep.
But for Elaine and Feyre's father, who doesn't have a name, which is also interesting. It's must be a constant drain on his power, and that just like is a bigger question for me. Like, how the heck does all of this work? Because Rhys seems to like have used like the last bits of his power to throw that glamour over. So when that glamour is there, is it just there, or is it like an active strain that you are using power for at all times? And if so, like the wells of Tamlin's power must be pretty freaking deep
Tamlin.
if Amarantha took it and he still had the ability to do that.
I agree. All right.
Yes.
What do you
So
have
then
next?
he also so that aside, like glamoring, High Lord power, shifting, those are like the big ones that we typically see. He also has wind that he mysteriously never reveals. And we learn about it because Feyre is escaping from Highburn with Elaine and this human girl named Briar, and Azriel is helping her, even though his back is literally bleeding out, which is also a crazy scene. And Tamlin assists her, basically, because she is not good at flying. She's just figuring out how to use her wings, and he sends a wind to kind of push her out beyond the wards so that they can winnow out of there and escape. And he himself jumps beyond the wards and escapes as well. I think it's super interesting that he's never revealed this wind power before. And we see it in a few places, and we'll talk about it later. And I'll leave it at that. What other powers did you want to talk about with
He
Tamlin?
has the secret wind power. Feyre has the wind power, and she speculates where she got it from. So the quote is, "That shield I once made of hardened wind. Who did that come from?" And then Lucien says, "Maybe Daycourt." So even Lucien doesn't know that Tamlin has this power. So why is he trying to keep this wind power secret? Like, what is it about the wind specifically that he doesn't want people to know about him? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah. And will we learn within the third book, right, that there is wind power associated with, I think, Dracon's legions, right?
Yes.
The Seraphim.
The Seraphim.
So is there a link there? I don't know.
We have another
that's the
question
only other
later.
time that we see wind. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah. The other power that he seems to have, and I don't know if this is, again, just like a High Lord power, he seems to be able to make things grow. So like when Feyre goes back to her room at the beginning of Wings of Ruin, her old room is covered in vines, covered in thorns. Like it's like the earth is responding in Tamlin's rage and just making horrible, horrible things grow.
Yeah.
We know that his father, he tells Feyre that his father grew the rose garden for his mother. We didn't really have any insight into how that happened. I assumed it just meant like he had it planted, but it might mean he literally
grew it. Yeah.
Grew it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again is interesting. I don't know that it matters, but that's just another power that he seems to have.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like I had personally just chalked that up to like High Lord power, but I think something worth bringing up here, and I think it'll come in later episodes, is the Suriel says that High Lords are power. Like they do not have magic, they are. And we see this in like ways like you just described, where they can just make things occur, make things happen, appear. And they also, at least Tamlin, right, has to give power back to the earth basically through Calanmai.
I thought they got, or maybe it's return the power to the earth. I thought they got the power.
No, they get it back
too.
Yeah, there's a right, it releases power from Tamlin, and then we get power back. It like keeps the power going. So they are like critical. They're a crucial part of the flow of power in all of their lands as well. And their power is like a physical thing. Like when a High Lord dies, it shifts to their heir. So it is not just like power that's tied to Tamlin necessarily. It's power that's tied to this role in like nature almost. Which
I did have the question: if Tamlin dies right now, who becomes High Lord of Springcourt?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because who filled in for him in Calanmai? Lucien did.
Lucien.
Why was Lucien able to fill in?
Yeah, what do you mean you can just fucking substitute? Like, what is that about?
Well, Lucien is the son of a High Lord, so
Yeah.
I don't know. But then, like, we learned that no other court does Calamine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Why is
Or
this
at
only
least
a
not
spring
the Night Court.
thing? The Night Court doesn't do this. Okay. Anyway, we're slightly
Yeah.
digressing.
We're digressing a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So how does Tamlin know so much about Feyre's mortal life? I'm going to give you all the examples first of all the times that Tamlin knows things about Feyre's mortal life that he shouldn't. So the first thing he knows is that her mother is dead. She never tells him this. Tamlin asks her, how did she die? When I lifted my brows, he added a bit more slowly. I didn't see signs of an older woman in your house. That's in chapter 8 of ACOTAR. So Tamlin is claiming that in the, I'm going to guess, 5 minutes that he was in her house, he surmised that her mother is dead. I'm kind of calling bullshit on that one. He knows Feyre is a hunter. That one is less weird. Like, obviously, she killed Andras. I don't know how he knows she killed Andras, but he did. Knows she was once rich and her father lost his fortune. So what he says is, how did your father lose his fortune? She says, how'd you know about that? Tamlin snorted, I don't think born peasants have your kind of diction, right? So he has somehow surmised just from the way she talks that her father used to be rich and has lost his fortune.
Which is interesting because she can't read.
Right. Like, I'm calling bullshit on that, Tamlin. He knows that Feyre was there when they broke her father's leg, and Feyre specifically doesn't tell him this. So in chapter 18, Feyre is opening up to Tamlin, and she's talking about her father. She says, my father, he just stopped trying after that. I couldn't bring myself to mention that final ugly moment when the other creditor had come with his cronies to wreck my father's leg, right? So she specifically does not tell Tamlin about the broken leg. And then in chapter 22, Feyre is showing him her painting. And one of the paintings is tall shadows of men, bright red dripping off their fists, their wooden clubs hovering and filling the edges of the painting as they towered over the curled figure on the floor, the blood leaking from him, the leg at a wrong angle. And Tamlin says, you were there when they broke your father's leg, right? He doesn't say, what happened here? What is this? He says, you were there when they broke your father's leg. Like, he knows exactly what this scene is depicting despite the fact that Feyre has not told him. So we are in a world where there are mind readers, right? We are in a world where they are daemati. We have not been told that Tamlin is a daemati, but this, I think, raises a lot of questions.
Yeah.
There's another scene later with the Suriel. I want to talk about the Suriel, right? So in book 1, Feyre traps the Suriel because she wants to ask the Suriel questions, and they're attacked by the Naga. The first thing that Feyre does is she frees the Suriel. And this, of course, is like a huge thing because fairies think of Suriels as like lesser beings. No fairy would do that, and the Suriel is kind of forever in her debt.
Mm-hmm.
But when she is later recounting this tale to Tamlin, Tamlin rescues her from the Naga. She's telling him what happened. She does not mention the Suriel. She does not mention that she freed it. She just said, I was like out in the woods, right? Like, she doesn't say I was out there for the Suriel. That's chapters 14 and 15. In chapter 16, Feyre and Tamlin have a conversation. He says, what were you doing out in the western woods? She says, truth or lie, both. I heard a legend once about a creature who answers your questions if you can catch it. Tamlin says, you went to catch the Suriel? And she says, I caught the Suriel, I corrected. And did it tell you what you wanted to know? I wasn't sure he was breathing. We were interrupted by the Naga before it could tell me anything worthwhile. And then he said, his mouth tightened. I'd start shouting, but I think today was punishment enough. So that's where the conversation ends. That's everything that they say to each other about the Suriel, right? She says, I caught the Suriel and it started telling me things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lucien, in chapter 18, says to Feyre, Tamlin told me that your first shot was to save the Suriel's life, not your own. This is chapter 18.
Mm-hmm.
Feyre never told Tamlin that. How the fuck did Tamlin know that, right? Like, he is not given this information. He is not there. He shows up later. How did Tamlin know that Feyre tried to free the Suriel? So I'm pretty sold at this point that Tamlin is reading Feyre's mind. Let's talk about the line that Tamlin whispers in Feyre's ear. You are exactly as I dreamed you would be too. So this is when they're in the glen with the pool of starlight, right? A couple paragraphs before this, Tamlin has removed the glamour on himself so she can see fully the glory of this High Lord, right? Tamlin removes his glamour, and Feyre thinks it was the Tamlin I've dreamed of, but she never says it. She does not say it. And then a couple paragraphs later, Tamlin says on the next page, they have had no conversations. You're exactly as I dreamed you'd be too, right?
Yeah.
So she never says it out loud, and Tamlin is responding to her thoughts. So at the very least, I think that Tamlin is reading Feyre's mind, and we can get into the daemati of it later. But what are your thoughts on what I've just said? Because I said a lot there.
I think everything that you've described clearly points to Tamlin being daemati. What I struggle with, if he is daemati, there are so many other points in the series where he could have used it to his advantage and seemingly didn't. And like maybe that was a strategic choice, but like one thing that struck me was, okay, first of all, under the mountain. Like, he could have, like, if Feyre was human at that point, he could have literally just, like, walked right into her mind and been like, hey, by the way, like, I can talk to you here and, like, everything is gonna be okay. Like, he clearly did love her. Like, Rhys affirmed that he did later in the book. Like, why not use it there? And then later, when he's trying to convince all of the other High Lords that Rhys is evil, like, if he's trying to do that, like, what?
Why not break into their
why
minds?
not? Yeah, especially if he's anywhere near as powerful as Rhys, like, why not break into other people's minds in those moments where he needed to?
He might not be as powerful as Rhys.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is an option. I also think it's an option that Rhys is not truly a daemati, and we can talk more about that on our Rhys episode, but I think Rhys might be something else that might make him more powerful in this regard. Yeah, I mean, you might be right. But there is a moment, in the Council of the High Lords where Feyre says, so first of all, also the High Lords all shield their minds, right? Like we know most of them know how to do that. We know Tarkin doesn't know how to do that, but I think most of them know how to do that.
Yeah.
But there is a moment where Feyre says her head starts to hurt.
Yeah.
And people have pointed to that as evidence that Rhys is trying to read her mind. I think that's evidence that Tamlin is trying to read her mind, right?
And I think Tamlin also gets a headache, right?
Tamlin gets a headache after the daemati twins are visiting them. Tamlin leaves to complaining of a headache probably because he's had his shields up all night. And there is no moment where Feyre actually goes into Tamlin's mind. Like she assumes he has no shields up when the daemati twins are there. She assumes that he doesn't know how to be a daemati, so she shields his mind for him, but she doesn't actually go into his mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, I kind of think he has to be or have some version of it. I just, like, question his intelligence, honestly. Like, you should have used this in so many other places.
And I'm willing to say that this is book 1, and Sarah J. Maas hadn't just fully figured out what, like, Fae powers would going to be, and, like, maybe she was just like, all Fae can read minds, and then she decided, no, only specific Fae could read minds, right?
Yeah.
But Tamlin's definitely reading her mind, in my mind, in this book. Even if it's not with the mortal stuff, as you mentioned, like, he definitely reads her mind with the, you're exactly as I dreamed you would be, and with the Suriel. Like, I think there's no questions on that. And then we get into the question of, what is the difference between glamoring someone and going into their mind and changing things? There's no difference there, right? Like, so I have this quote. It says, this is chapter 54 of Mist and Fury. Rhys is explaining what he did to Claire. He says, I broke into Claire's head when they brought her onto the mountain. I took away her pain. I told her to scream when expected to. So they did those things to her, and I tried to make it right, but after a week, I couldn't let them do that, hurt her like that anymore. So while they tortured her, I slipped into her mind again and ended it. She didn't feel any pain. She felt none of what they did to her, even at the end, right? So basically what he's saying is he went into her mind and he changed what she was seeing and what she was feeling, which is exactly what Tamlin does to Feyre when she comes to the Spring Court. It is exactly the same thing. Like, how is that any different?
Yeah. We also associate being daemati with, like, a depiction of a physical tapping, right?
Okay,
like
I have
has a talon.
arguments for that too.
Sure. Okay.
Feyre goes into Lucien's mind and Tarkin's mind, and they have no idea. And Rhys even says a daemati could walk around in your mind and you would have no idea. I think Rhys's talents are, first of all, that's why I think he might not be fully daemati. Why I think he might be something else. It's a courtesy. It's to let you know, hey, I'm here. Will you let me in? Because he loves Feyre. And he even says that when he is going into her mind the first time, he wanted to scare her, right? He wanted her to know that she was there. But Feyre, we see, go into Lucien's mind. And he has no idea. He doesn't feel her there. It's not like a shields thing, right? Because Feyre didn't have shields up when she was human and Rhys goes into her mind the first time. It's a courtesy thing, and you don't need to do it. You don't need to do that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm convinced.
Wow, that was great.
But what I would add to this, like, he could know everything that he knows based on just being able to read the minds of the people that he encounters, and he encounters her family and he encounters her, obviously. I do want to talk a little bit more about her mortal life, because I also think it's possible that he shaped it. Like, I think it's totally possible that, like, we learn tiny bit of the level of deception that Tamlin is capable of, right? And that he has been sending out his men one by one as wolves, waiting for, a woman that could eventually love him to kill them. Right? Like that's been his plan, which is first of all an insane plan, but that's his plan. That's what he's been doing that we know of, right? It occurred to me when thinking about him glamoring Feyre's family's memories, like how long could this have been going on for? Could he have known of a prophecy that Feyre would be the one to break this curse, and he could have manipulated her whole life, basically, like her whole life to lead up to this moment? My thought came when he freaked out when she found the Suriel. Like he was not happy that she found the Suriel. And as far as I know, the Suriel is the only like real prophetic being that we have seen. And so if I'm Tamlin and I'm panicked in the Spring Court and I'm like, oh my God, like how am I going to break this curse? Who might I find to tell me how to break this curse? Potentially the Suriel. We know the Suriel is prophetic just for everyone's, argument's sake, because he says stay with the High Lord and all will be righted. We think he's saying stay with Tamlin, but actually what he's saying is Feyre, like stay with Rhys, like continue to live, like stay on this planet when you're dying.
Yeah.
Well, so my thought is, could he have? Well, yeah, it could have been a ton of times that she should have stayed with Rhys, but like the one that she points out, the one that she notices is when Rhys is dying. She's like, he was telling me to stay on this planet with Rhys. So could he have caused Feyre's father's ships to mysteriously disappear? We know they didn't actually disappear, right? Like they came back or they were glamored back. Like I don't know which is the answer, but like Feyre's whole life fell apart and was forced to hunt because her father's ships disappeared with all of their riches on the way to Barat?
Yeah.
Barat?
I don't know.
Which I kind of have had a feeling in the back of my mind that Barat, like those ships were intentionally sunk anyways, right? And her house is also literally marked with these like faded ward markings around the threshold to protect from fairies. What if it was just to mark where she was? Like, what if it was just basically highlighting her? Like, hey, she's here. The one who's gonna change all of this is here. And Tamlin literally manipulated her life around her so that she had to be in the forest with an ash arrow hunting the day that Andres was out.
This is so interesting. You're so right, because there's all these pieces and we know that Tamlin can shift into other people, right?
Right.
So like I have a note somewhere, like there's a merchant that sells the ash arrow. Who was that? Who was the mercenary, right? A lot of people are like, who is this mercenary? Who is this woman? But Tamlin can shift into other people.
Anyone.
Tamlin can be anyone. I think that's a really fucking crazy idea and I love it. I don't think there even has to be a prophecy. Right? I think he could have just been like, hey, I need to get going on this curse. I'm just going to pick a random family. These people seem good.
With daughters that can starve and one of them will hunt.
Yeah. It's a gambit. It's like, there's no guarantee that that's all going to work out.
If the Suriel knows by the time that he sees Feyre that Feyre needs to do something specific for everything to be righted, for all to be righted, like, could Tamlin have received that same, like, if I'm Tamlin and I'm asking, hey, how do I get out of this? And the Suriel
I see what you're
actually
saying. He asked the Suriel. I see what you're saying.
The future. Then what does the Suriel tell him?
And Alice does know how to trap a Suriel, right? So it didn't even have to be Tamlin trapping a Suriel. Alice could have done it.
Yeah.
Fucking intriguing.
This whole thing transpired over 50 years.
Yeah.
So it started like 30 years before Feyre was even alive.
But my only argument against it is, at one point, maybe it doesn't matter, because at one point Tamlin stopped sending the sentries, but maybe that's because he has this other plan in motion. Like, remember, like, he stopped sending the sentries. He's like, whatever, I'm resigned to my fate. And then it was only in the last couple of years that he starts sending the sentries out again, I believe. And that's when Feyre
and maybe that was like the break.
But that
in
would
which
make
he
sense
figured it out
with the timeline. If he's like, okay, now, the youngest one is 19, so that's enough.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. There are a lot of pieces that need to fall into place for this to all work, and maybe Tamlin was behind the scenes. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
All
and
right,
I think
so
it works whether he's daemati or
theories.
not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he could be daemati and none of, like, it still matters. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really interesting.
But the Suriel was in the Spring Court, so
why was the Suriel in the Spring Court? Great questions.
I could do an entire episode on the Suriel.
I think we should. And I think we should.
All right, guys, look out for our episode on the Suriel. We don't know when it's coming, but it's coming.
Yeah. The only other thing I had about Tamlin being a daemati, two things. One, she mysteriously starts thinking about her family again after she leaves the manor. So it's like kind of when she's like out of range of Tamlin. Like she literally says, it's only when I walk past the hedges. She says it was probably the lulling of magic that clouded my thoughts, but I didn't think of my family until I passed the outer hedge wall one morning. So it's sort of like when she's within the manor that he has glamored, quote unquote, she's not thinking of her family. Then she leaves and she can start thinking about her family again. That's in chapter 19.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is Feyre really starts to see him for who he really is after Rhys starts teaching her how to shield, right? So when she has her shields up, when she knows how to shield a bit better, that's when things really start to fall apart. I'm not saying that this is like a direct example of it, but like,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that those two things coincide with each other. Like, I don't know, how devious was Tamlin? Like, was Tamlin just, if he is a daemati, was he going into her mind and being like, oh, it's fine, you love me, it's fine, you know? I'm not saying that's necessarily true. And I'm not even necessarily saying the daemati thing is for sure, but I'm saying that Sarah J. Maas has written it in such a way that this door is open if she decides that she wants to make Tamlin a daemati.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. What is the connection between Tamlin's family and Amarantha?
Yeah, so I didn't have tons for this one, not gonna lie. I mean, I have tons, but like it turned into my precog theory, sort of.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, I mean, as far as what we know, Tamlin's father and Amarantha were friends and good enough friends that she avenged him in some capacity, right? So we know that the primary connection between their families is that Amarantha was friends with Tamlin's father. We don't know a ton about Tamlin's father except for like some of the actions that he's taken against Rhys's family. Amarantha was one of Hybern's commanders and is originally from Hybern. So just because Hybern is used hilariously in these books, like I think it's hilarious that Hybern refers to a king, a people, and a continent. Like, let's just clarify. Amarantha is from Hybern, the continent, and the island, whatever, Isle Kingdom. And she was one of Hybern's commanders that ultimately deceived him, but he was pretty happy to let her do it and, you know, took over Prythian and ruled it while he kind of plotted in the background. It's told to us that Hybern and Tamlin's father allied, the king of Hybern and Tamlin's father, or the country, whatever you like to think of it as, allied because they wanted to keep their human slaves. So already we know that Tamlin's father is kind of a piece of shit. And one other important point, right, is that Amarantha, I don't know if love is the right word, but really lusts after Tamlin. The whole deal with this big curse that she's put forward is if Tamlin just comes and is my consort, like everyone can just be peaceful. Like, just be my consort. So she wants Tamlin. The only thought I had here, and you hopefully have more interesting ones, is like, what if, like, could Tamlin's father or mother be from Hybern? They are clearly a different breed of Fae, especially if the majority of their commanders are as or more powerful than Rhys. Like, they'll put up a fight with Rhys, and Rhys is like the most powerful of all of them. And if Tamlin were their progeny, then that could also explain how he's so powerful and how his power, once it was returned to him, let him kill Amarantha without a second thought, basically. But I don't really have much for this one, so what do you have?
I had one thought here with the secret wind power. You mentioned that the only other place we see that was with the Seraphim. I don't think that's actually entirely true. So in book 2, when Valeris is being attacked by the Hybern forces, so the Adder and other terrible creatures, there is a line that says they were like pushed as if by a fell wind. So it's like the wind was being kind of like magicked to push the forces to Valeris more quickly. We don't get more than that, but there's an implication there that they are being magically flown. They are not just flying normally. There is some kind of darker force at work here. And then we find out that Tamlin also has a wind power that can obviously carry forces because it carries Feyre and it carries him. And he keeps this power a secret. He doesn't want people to know about it, right? So did he get this power from the king of Hybern somehow? Like, is he somehow in the Hybern family tree, or did the king of Hybern do something to him when he was a child that gives him this wind power? Yeah. I don't know that one tiny line in that sentence is enough to go off of there, but that's where my thinking came from. Yeah. I don't have a ton about Amarantha and Tamlin specifically, more than what we've said here. But I do think there is a question of, we know that Tamlin went to visit Hybern when he was younger. What did he do there? What did the king perhaps do to him? We said it in the last episode, hurt people, and he's obviously hurting people. So maybe someone. So when was he hurt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, he had brothers, right? And
He had
he's
brothers.
definitely not the oldest. So it's just interesting because we also have that pattern of younger brothers not necessarily being legitimate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, and this gets back into how as a High Lord chose. Like, are you implying the King of Hybern might be his father?
No, I don't think the King of
Oh,
Hybern is his father. I think either Tamlin's father is, if Tamlin is in the Hybern family tree in some way, I think Tamlin's father could be from Hybern, regardless of whether it's Tamlin's father, the High Lord, or Tamlin's biological father, is what I'm getting at.
I think it's more likely there were some kind of like experiments being run or something, like trying to force. Like, we know the King of Hybern loves his spell book, right? Like that
Yeah,
keeps coming up. So, like, was there some kind of spell he did on Tamlin that gave him this
yeah,
power? And then it would make sense that he would keep it hidden because he didn't want this connection to be known.
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. All right. Why does Tamlin wear Illyrian hunting knives? All right. So for context for this one, early in ACOTAR, Tamlin is wearing a bandolier of knives, and then once Feyre returns to the Spring Court in Book 3, Feyre realizes that these knives that he's wearing are in fact Illyrian hunting knives. And all we know of Tamlin and Rhys is that they like totally hate each other. They killed each other's families. They are like enemies number one. Rhys refers to Tamlin as his second greatest enemy, the King of Hybern being his first. So it's like, why would Tamlin wear these knives that are so obviously connected to this like kind of dark part of his past? And we've heard nothing but contempt from Tamlin about Rhys and the Night Court as well. Like, Tamlin's never said a nice word about the Night Court. He says the Night Court does what it wants. They live by their own codes, their own corrupt morals. They're all sadistic killers. So the question is like, why would he be wearing these Illyrian hunting knives? And I think we do kind of get hints of this in Frost and Starlight, perhaps, when Tamlin asks Rhys, like, would you ever forgive me for what I did to your mother and sister? But we know that Tamlin and Rhys were friends at one point, right? It seems like these knives would point to the idea that some part of him still values Rhys's friendship, right? We know that Rhys is surrounded by friends, but Tamlin not really. We have one little instance of like what could be an inner circle for him the night before him and Feyre's wedding, where Tamlin is like talking to these people and they're laughing like old friends, but they never come back, right? Like, and Lucien even says that he thought going to the Spring Court would be like what it is at Night Court, where it's like people and friends and talking and just like it would be an inner circle. And it doesn't really seem like Tamlin has that. He has Lucien, but Lucien has even defected from him at one point.
Yeah.
We also know that Rhys stopped his father from actually killing Tamlin, right? So Rhys's father was going to kill Tamlin. Again, I ask, who would be the High Lord of the Spring Court in that case? But there could be some gratitude there, right? Like, Rhys did ultimately save Tamlin's life and kind of give Tamlin his title, whether he wanted it or not. So I think we are being set up for there to be a Tamlin still values Rhys's friendship, maybe actually wants to be friends with him even after Feyre. Maybe we're being set up for that redemption arc and that full circle. That's option one. Do you want to talk through option one, or do you want me to talk about option two?
I had similar things. I mean, the short answer is like whichever way you shake it, I think these knives are from Rhys. Like, we have confirmed friendship between the two of them. They both kind of admitted it. They both also kind of told half truths about each other. So I don't know that we know the whole story about the degree of friends that they were. Rhys sought Tamlin out when he wasn't at the war camp or in court. And to me, this is a little bit more than like we're just friends, right? Like, we're just friendly enough for me to like teach you some things. Like, he went out of his way to help Tamlin. So he obviously empathized with him, but that's a lot to do for a friend. Like, go out of your way to go find them. Like, the Night Court is up here and the Spring Court is down here. Like, they're not exactly neighbors. Now there are doors and there's winnowing, but
well, we know that you need permission to be in another court's territory, right? So we get that when Rhys wants to go to Summer Court to see Tarkin, and we get it in Silver Flames when Cassian and Nesta and Eris are trespassing in Spring Court, right? So like, this is not as simple as like popping over for a hot bev, you know? Like, there's more to it than that. Like, this is kind of complicated because they're not from the same.
Yeah. And we know that people knew, but that Rhys's family disapproved. And so
Tamlin's family definitely disapproved.
Been more than friends, maybe?
That's an intriguing thought.
I don't know. Because it would work, right, with what happened to Moore. Like, how pissed would Tamlin's and Rhys's fathers respectively be if their like heir apparents were about to not have a line? Like, that'd be a big problem for people who are like them, right? I don't know.
Oh my
So
God, that'd be crazy. I mean, Rhys isn't gay, obviously.
yeah, but there's fluidity.
No, absolutely. But I'm saying, like, yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. Um,
I mean, Rhys did say he's open to having a man join them in the bedroom. So I
Yeah.
totally agree that Rhys is probably fluid, but like, I see what you're saying. They wouldn't have produced an heir.
they wouldn't have produced an heir, right? Which is like
Yeah.
exactly why Moore's sexuality would have been viewed a problem and why she is so cautious about it. When we get into option 2, are you gonna talk about them
I'm going
killing
to talk
each
about
other's
Rhys's
families?
mother and sister. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll wait for that. That's fine. Go ahead.
Well, option 2 is just that Tamlin feels a lot of guilt about being responsible for Rhys's mother and sister's death, which we know was Rhys's mother and sister were going to visit Rhys at an Illyrian war camp. Tamlin's father had grown scared of Rhys and all of his power. Rhys was supposed to meet up with his mother and sister, but he decided to stay at the war camp and train. And Tamlin told his father where Rhys's mother and sister were going to be, and they ambushed them, and they were killed, and their heads were sent to Rhys's family in a box. And I guess Rhys's family at this point is just him and his father. But I think
They were found at the
Tamlin-
nearest camp. But
Yeah. Tamlin could, and clearly kind of is holding a lot of guilt around that, right? Because we
Yeah.
know in, of course, A Court of Frost and Starlight, he asked Rhys, like, will you ever forgive me? And Rhys says, I don't recall hearing an apology, which is a great fucking point. Like, you gotta apologize first, Tamlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big thing that I'm missing with that is like the why Tamlin's father set out with the other men in the family to kill Rhys. Like, were they really just upset that the sons of 2 High Lords were friends? Like, that seems like not the full story. Like, not enough to go set out and kill Rhys. Like, we don't have a better reason than that.
But why would Tamlin, well, maybe Tamlin didn't actually give, maybe this is a story that we haven't been told correctly, but we've been told that Tamlin gave his father the location, right? That's why Rhys can't forgive Tamlin, because Tamlin gave his father the location of where his mother and sister would be. That's the role he played in this.
Yeah.
If Rhys and Tamlin were lovers, I don't think he would have done that. But like, we don't know the conditions under which Tamlin
Yeah, and
told
like,
his father.
why would Tamlin want Rhys dead?
Right. Doesn't really make sense. I mean, Tamlin's father viewed Rhys as a threat.
Right.
Like, he didn't like how powerful he was
Both
becoming.
Tamlin and Rhys were more powerful than Tamlin's father.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, like, the other option here is like, could Tamlin and Rhys's sister have been involved, and like rhysand maybe helped keep it hidden? That
Yeah.
would have really pissed probably Tamlin's father off, because they're half-breeds and like they were very controversially in power anyways. And so, like, we've seen this before, right? Like, when someone sees a lover of the son of a High Lord, potentially heir apparent, that's unfit, like, let me set out and kill them. And both Rhys's sister, were both half-breeds, and Rhys's mother was Illyrian. So could it have been like a species-driven, I'm gonna kill you off so that you don't taint my bloodline?
Yeah. I mean, that would kind of make sense with everything we know about him. I've certainly heard that theory. But it still doesn't, the question of how Tamlin's father found out where they were is up in the air, right? Because if that's the case, and maybe either way, now that I think about it, Tamlin's not giving up that information willingly, right?
Yeah,
So,
willingly.
yeah. If Tamlin did in fact tell his father, which we don't know how Rhys knows that Tamlin told his father, then it was tortured out of him or something like that. He was
Yeah.
at least tricked, I think. Yeah.
Yep, I think there's more to this story, but
I think so,
yeah, he
too.
wears Illyrian hunting knives because of his friendship with Rhys.
It gets back to his friendship with Rhys no matter what. The question is what kind of happened within that friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Tamlin had to be forced into that event somehow, right? Unless something horrible happened that we just don't know yet. And in that case, like, we just don't know, that would have cleaved them apart so significantly that he would have said, yeah, I'm going to hand Rhys over to you on a silver platter, Dad. Then this doesn't really add up, especially because he shows remorse. Tamlin's father keeps Rhys's mother and sister's wings, allegedly. We've never seen them.
We've never seen proof of that. Yeah.
Pinned to the study. And Tamlin says, I burned them a long time ago. Could have been glamour. Could have never been there. But Tamlin is remorseful. Yeah.
All right.
So
So anyway, Tamlin loves Rhys secretly, maybe platonically, maybe more. That's the moral of the story.
yeah.
There is a line, I think it's at the Council of the High Lords, that I think at some point we should dissect. But Tamlin says to Rhys, like, I always forgot what you really were. And now everyone gets to see it.
Yeah. When he has his wings out.
Oh, it's when he has his wings out.
It's when he has his wings out. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Meaning an Illyrian.
An Illyrian. Yeah.
Okay, well,
that's
that
when
makes
they
sense then.
they decide like no more facade. Rhys doesn't hide his wings. He has them fully. It's interesting because he says he like can summon his wings as he pleases, which to me does not seem like he's glamoring them out of existence. Like he just chooses whether they are there or are not, which is so interesting.
Where's he summoning them from? A pocket realm, perhaps? We can get into it later. That's a different episode.
It's a different episode.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Why does Feyre keep falling asleep uncontrollably around Tamlin?
So Feyre falls asleep so much in A Court of Thorns and Roses. I have 4 material instances of it that I want to talk about. 2 have clear explanations. 2, in my opinion, don't. And I want to talk about what they could be. The first instance of Feyre falling asleep uncontrollably is when she's being brought back to the Spring Court by Tamlin. The quote is, I opened my mouth to again ask for his name, but a growl of annoyance rippled out of him. I didn't have a chance to struggle, to fight back, when a charged metallic tang stung my nose. Exhaustion slammed down upon me, and blackness swallowed me whole. So she like feels the magic. That's the charged metallic tang, which I also think is interesting. We'll talk about that later. That she can feel magic, that is. I guess humans maybe just can, but maybe they can't. And she falls asleep. And Tamlin, we come to understand, does this to kind of conceal her path home. The second instance is the one that you already mentioned in this episode, in the meadow with Tamlin. They're there in the meadow with the pool of starlight, and the quote is, I tried to think up an excuse for my forwardness, but a yawn crept from me as a sudden weight pressed on my eyes. He asks, what about your part of the bargain? She says, what? He leaned closer, his smile turning wicked. What about my kiss? I grabbed his fingers. Here, I said, and slammed my mouth against the back of his hand. There's your kiss. Tamlin roared with laughter, but the world blurred, lulling me to sleep. The willow beckoned me to lie down, and I obliged. From far off, I heard Tamlin curse. Feyre, sleep. I wanted sleep, and there was no better place to sleep than right here. And she falls asleep. So this one happens right as they're having a moment, right? And Tamlin seems to not want it to happen. That's
her falling asleep.
Her falling asleep. He
doesn't want her falling asleep to happen. Yeah.
Doesn't want her falling asleep. The third instance is after she and Tamlin hooked up, that like little blip that it was. And he decided that she was leaving. And the quote was, I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to lose a minute with him, but immense exhaustion was pulling me away from consciousness until all I knew was the touch of his fingers in my hair and the sounds of his breathing. Another instance where maybe he wanted it, but they had just kind of had a moment, like they were feeling things for each other. She didn't want to leave him, and she was pulled into this sleep. And then the fourth instance is when she's put to sleep by him when the carriage is returning to her family's estate. Did you have any other instances of her falling asleep?
Yeah,
at weird times?
I think there is one more. It is when you mentioned before, when the puka shows up as her father.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, you don't know him. My father wouldn't have bothered to do either. I think this is when he's walking her back to the house. She says, and they all would have died anyway. This is talking about her family. And they all would have died anyway once they ran into things like the puka or the bogey or the naga. A silence blanketed my mind until I was so exhausted I could barely think, and I couldn't stop myself from saying, you don't know him. My father wouldn't have bothered to do either. Tamlin looked at me for a long moment. So this is when she's thinking about her family.
Yeah.
She gets exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's falling asleep uncontrollably. We are given 2 clear points where we know it's being done to her, right? Like she's not choosing it. And that's when she's coming to and from the Spring Court. So we know that making people fall asleep is a thing that's happening in this novel. I think 2 things could be going on here. One is like the easy, uninteresting answer, which is just something as simple as this honestly really well done symbolism that Sarah J. Maas pulls through books 1 and 2, where Tamlin is symbolic of Feyre being put to sleep, dulled, lulled into this false sense of security, content to just waste away in a palace. And Rhys, when she goes to the Night Court, is described frequently as waking her up. Like she says multiple times in Mist and Fury that she feels awake. Yeah. Like when she's out to dinner with the gang in Valaris, like she's like, your food makes me feel awake. The second potential explanation that's a little bit more interesting is someone else who can do this is aware of the curse and that Feyre was on the path to freeing Tamlin from it. Because remember, if a human just loved him, like if a human loved him enough to marry him, then this curse is broken. And so each time except for the carriage times, that she's being kind of lulled out of consciousness are times when she might have started to feel love. Like even when she's falling asleep after they hooked up, he's like, I love you, thorns and all. And she can't say anything because she's falling asleep. So then who could have done this? I don't think it could have been Amarantha, because had she known that this was happening, she would have just sent for her and killed her. Yeah. So I don't think that Amarantha was playing like background daemati in this situation. She's also not a daemati. I don't think it was Tamlin either, because obviously he, in those moments, like he would want to be free. I don't think it was Rhys, because we all know he also wanted to be free. Like he even confesses to Feyre, like some of the reasons he did things were just because he wanted this curse to end. Like he wanted to see his family again. So others. One thought I had, I don't think it's right, but like Lucien, he wears a fox mask. We probably don't really know the whole story about him. And we know that he's wearing a fox mask because he's deceptive. It's pointed out a few times, like him wearing this is warranted. I don't have a great reason for that, because I would think he would also want to be free.
Yeah.
And then maybe just Hybern. Like maybe Hybern or Hybern's allies are like interfering in some way and being aware of what's happening and are like lulling her out of consciousness to avoid her breaking this curse. I don't think we'll ever find out, honestly, but I think the timing was important enough to note. And I'm curious your thoughts.
I definitely thought it was just Tamlin, if I'm being honest. Because the instance that you say where he cursed, they're by that willow tree that Tamlin says always puts him to sleep. So I just kind of thought that was the willow putting to sleep. And every other time that sticks out, after they hook up for the first time and when she falls asleep, I didn't think that was that crazy. Like it's like pretty late at night. So I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense if she's falling asleep. I just kind of thought it was a Tamlin thing and that he can go into her mind. He can clearly go into her mind, right? Because he does this to her when they're crossing the border.
Right. Yeah.
It would be intriguing if it were someone else too, from like far away. But yeah, I don't know who that would be or why.
I guess if it is Tamlin, like why is he sending her to sleep when she could break the curse? Just because he doesn't actually want her to marry him?
Well,
guilt?
I have in my notes that she starts to fall asleep kind of when she starts to think about her family. So like that instance with the puka, she's thinking about her family and then she's like, oh, I'm so tired. So I thought it was kind of Tamlin's ploy to keep her away from her family, to break the curse. It's interesting that we saw this very differently.
Well, what about the time in the meadow then? Oh, you thought that was
it's
just
the willow. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's just symbolism then.
I like this symbolism though. It's really, I didn't pick up on that, but you're totally right.
But I think the symbolism is there, whether it's also a plot point or not.
It's also like depressed people sleep a lot, right? So this is kind of symbolism for depression too, right? Like,
yeah,
in my mind.
Depressed people sleep a lot, but panicked people don't.
That's true. And she's not really depressed yet.
Yeah.
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 Good point.
Okay.
Cool. All right. That concludes the ACOTAR portion of this episode. So we're about to go into our Maasverse portion. This is your spoiler warning for the entire Maasverse. So that includes all of Throne of Glass, all of Crescent City. If you have not read Throne of Glass or Crescent City, go no farther. Turn around. We've loved having you. We hope you enjoyed our ACOTAR deep dive on Tamlin. We'll see you next week with our next episode. But for now, put this down. This is your last spoiler warning. Here we go. Ronnie, where do Tamlin's powers come from?
Okay. Shall we start with Tamlin's physical description? I would like to.
Sure.
The short version is he's golden-haired with green eyes flecked with amber. His eyes were green, even in beast form, they looked human. We talked already about Tamlin's powers and the fact that he has wind, right? And so if we're linking things to other universes now, like we already know that we have cross book lineage happening, right? Like Lydia, for example, in Crescent City is a descendant of Brannon, which is a character from Throne of Glass. Like we know the fire line has been kind of passed down there. So in my opinion, everything is on the table as far as who could be related to who between these worlds. I had two thoughts on Tamlin. He could have ancestry ties or even direct lineage to, in my opinion, two Fae couples, but I have a very strong preference towards one of them that we are aware of. One Fae couple is Rowan and Aelin, and then the other Fae couple is Lysandra and Aedion. Rowan's physical description is silver hair, tan skin with pine green eyes. He has wind magic, ice magic, healing magic, lightning, and shape-shifting. And then Aelin's physical description is golden hair with ash river blue eyes, bright blue with gold rings around them. Aedion looks like Aelin, basically, so I'm not going to restate his physical description because it's the same. Lysandra, we don't know what she looks like. Like, she presents with green eyes and brown hair.
That's a great point. That's a great point. We have no idea what she looks like. Yeah.
But, okay, so I'll talk through each of them because I'm actually super excited about this. So there's more things that I find hard to reconcile with Lysandra and Aedion than Rowan and Aelin. One, we don't know what Lysandra actually looks like, but this could very well be fine because we know from Feyre's pregnancy that shifted form genetics do have an impact on progeny because Feyre was Illyrian when she conceived Nyx, and then that child was Illyrian. So it, like, the green eyes could still be Lysandra's if she had green eyes when they conceived this child, or like any future, whatever child is between them and Tamlin if it's not direct child. But there's no wind power between Lysandra and Aedion. And also, Aedion is half human, and Lysandra potentially also. Like, she's a shifter, but she's never described as Fae, even though maybe she is. And so it doesn't really seem like it would result in High Lord level power. Rowan and Aelin, on the other hand, I think that's it. Like, I think that's it. The only thing that I can't reconcile are the amber flecks in Tamlin's eyes, and like, if they're distant relatives, like, whatever. The other thing is like all that fire and none of it was passed down, but I guess it wouldn't be that wild if that wasn't passed down because Aelin gave it up. So my vote is that he's related to Rowan and Aelin.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, so I had a lot of interesting things about Rowan and Aelin. So when Aelin first meets, so we know that Tamlin's beast form, and we didn't actually even talk about this, but I just want to read the quote for the beast form. The beast had to be as large as a horse, and while his body was somewhat feline, his head was distinctly wolfish. I didn't know what to make of the curled elk-like horns that protruded from his head, but lion or hound or elk, there was no doubting the damage his black dagger-like claws and yellow fangs could inflict. So what we have is a wolf's head with horns, right? Elk-like horns, and then kind of a larger than wolf body. Aelin, when she first meets Rowan, what she says is, all Fae possessed a secondary animal form. Selena, she's still going by Selena at that point, was currently in hers. Her mortal human body is animal as the birds wheeling above. But what was his? He could have been a wolf, she thought, with that layered surcoat that flowed to mid-thigh like a pelt, his footfall so silent. So we have Tamlin's wolf form. Tamlin's beast form is wolfish, and Aelin thinks that Rowan could have been a wolf. We, of course, find out he is not a wolf. He is a... what is he?
Hawk.
I'm thinking buzzard, but I know he's not a buzzard.
He's a hawk.
He's a hawk. A white hawk, right. So I thought that was a really interesting...
And Gavriel is a mountain lion, right?
Gavriel is a mountain lion. Fenris is a wolf. Fenris is a white wolf.
Fenris is a wolf.
So that's interesting, too.
Eyes?
Fenris's eyes are black. I looked this up. They're onyx. So I was like, maybe it's Fenris. Yeah. Rowan and Aelin's story even kind of starts similarly. Like, he is basically sent to collect her and bring her to this Fae world, right? And they go on a journey together. It's not quite the same, but there's similar character beats. Mm-hmm. And he's taking her to a land that's being secretly ruled by an evil queen, right? Similar beats. So I hear what you're saying. The wind power hasn't like played enough into it yet, right? Like, we don't know why he's keeping it secret. As we talked about, maybe the King of Hybern has this power too. I'm not sold on it. I have here notes. Okay, so I did go power by power, but let's talk about the wind. So I have Rowan is the most obvious answer here. Other Rowan/Tamlin comps, they do both have green eyes, as you talked about. They both bite their women, right? So as we talked about with Kalanmai, and we haven't seen any other Fae do this, Tamlin has this instinct to bite Feyre. And we know in Throne of Glass, that's how you claim someone, right? So, like, Rowan's over here biting Aelin, like, all the time.
Yeah.
But Tamlin is the only Fae we've seen in Prythian who does that. So where did that come from? So I definitely think that speaks to the Throne of Glass bloodline.
Really? Yeah.
Ties. So I buy it. I know people are very convinced about the Lysandra thing, but Lysandra can't shift other people. And that's really Tamlin's power here, right? Is that he can somehow shift other people. we do see someone who can shift other people. And I don't know this is ever confirmed, but in Crescent City, it is rumored that Jessica Roga can shift people into animals, right?
Yeah.
Jessica Roga is a human who got her powers from the Apollyon, the Prince of
Yeah.
Hell, right? Accidentally. And he is the Prince of the Pit, which is the most powerful of the Princes of Hell. Apollyon takes on many forms. So when he appears in front of Bryce and Hunt, he appears differently. In front of Hunt, he has leathery wings and sounds kind of like an Illyrian, which I think is interesting. But in front of Bryce, he has chosen to appear in a golden-haired, golden-skinned body, handsome in the way that ancient statues were handsome. Golden hair, golden skin, that sounds like Tamlin to me. So I think we also have a potential Prince of Hell offspring here that we're dealing with, which I know people love to talk about with the Illyrians, and this is assuming that Jessica Roga can in fact transform animals. We've never actually seen her do it, I don't think. I don't think we ever see her do it. It's just rumored that that's one of her powers. If she can do it, she got it from a Prince of Hell. A Prince of Hell that sounds like he chooses to appear looking a lot like Tamlin to Bryce. So I thought that was very interesting. Bryce also at one point describes his movements as more animal than humanoid, which sounds a lot like Tamlin. Right. That sounds very much like Tamlin.
Yeah, I think the Prince of Hell angle is interesting. I think he's just, and I went this path with, well, I'll let you keep going because I have one more unhinged thought, admittedly unhinged thought.
That's pretty much it in terms of where the only other thing I had, the earth magic, if he truly does have earth magic where he can make these vines grow. Tristan Flynn also has that in Crescent City. And we know that it's tied to Avalon, it's tied to the Fey homeworld, so that does seem like it might be. And I haven't really refreshed my memory on this one. I'm going to be so honest with you. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But it does seem like maybe that is a specific power that came over from the Fey homeworld, which we know, of course, that this planet is, and that Tristan Flynn has it. So yeah, our boy Tam Tam has a lot of power.
He has a lot of power. And like, I kind of think, it's hard to know, right? Like, what's his High Lord power versus what's just like him? And maybe that's like what this wind is maybe the wind is just him, and then like everything that's like, you know, physical manipulation, glamoring, whatever is High Lord power. I think the other place that I went, I'm gonna just spoil maybe a fun reveal, but like I don't see your way around talking about it right now. Like, there's no way that the King of Hybern is not Valg. So given that, if we think about Hybern as Valg infested, basically, right? There are Valg parasites possessing Fey bodies. We know one example of a Valg possessed human that produced another human with crazy magic. Like, could that have happened with Tamlin, right? Like, if Tamlin's father, whether it was the High Lord or not, and maybe this is how High Lords got their power, I don't know. If Tamlin's father had a Valg possessing him when Tamlin was conceived, does that just put everything on the table? Because that's what happened with Dorian.
So fucking interesting. Holy shit, you're totally right. Yeah, you're totally right.
Dorian was human, but there's no rule that says that it can't be Fae as well. Is that how the High Lords exist?
All of them.
Maybe.
Well,
I definitely think
Rhys.
this is on the table for Tamlin and for Rhys.
I agree. Which begs the question, is daemati even a thing? Is it even a real thing? Or is it just being Valg?
Valg progeny.
All right, we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's really interesting. Yeah, well, so that's why I brought up, it feels like maybe the wind thing was an experiment, because we know the Valg love to like experiment on people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I caught that without you saying it explicitly.
Yes, and I want to make it clear for our listeners, that's what I was referring to, is that we know the Valg love to do experiments to try to create new things out of old things. Were they doing some experiment on Tamlin when he was a child over on Hybern that resulted in this wind power? Is that why he's keeping it secret? The fact that the Seraphim also have it, when we know that the Illyrians were created to be the foot soldiers of the Asteri, right? We find that out in Crescent City. It seems that the Seraphim have probably also been created by the Asteri, right? So they are experiments. And we're not going to get into if the Asteri and the Valg are the same thing. That's kind of neither here nor there. The point is, we have been told that certain races have been created by other races as experiments. One of those races could be the Seraphim, which have this wind power. So if Tamlin has it too, does that mean he got it as a creation, as a result of an experiment by the Valg on him? Yeah.
And there are Valg in this story.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. Amarantha has black eyes. We'll talk about it later.
So does the King of Hybern.
So does the King of Hybern. So do...
And he has no name.
Lots of people without names in this book. The amount of times I wrote nameless is my price on my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in summary, we think we have a strong Rowan connection with the secret wind. We're not sold on Lysandra and Adian. We also potentially have an Apollyon connection from Crescent City, and we think Tamlin might be a Valg offspring. Yeah.
One of them, probably
Wow.
not multiple.
This is how we're starting this season.
Possible.
It's possible. Okay. Very, very, very intriguing. I don't think all of those work. I think he has to be
I think it's got
one or two of those things, not all of them. Cool. All right. Next question. All right. What is Tamlin's connection to the wolves in Crescent City? I actually just went back and reread this part of Crescent City, so it was pretty interesting. Tamlin, specifically, Tamlin's beast form, the wolf with the horns, is the sigil for the pack of devils in Crescent City. So specifically the pack led by Danica, who is, surprise, surprise, another blonde. I'm not saying necessarily that I think Tamlin is in her bloodline, but we know that she is very, very obsessed with bloodlines. And if Tamlin is a Rowan descendant, then it's possible maybe that Danica is also a Rowan descendant. We'll get into that later. But we know that the shifters come from the Throne of Glass world. It is specifically the pack of devils and the Fendir family, though. It's not all of the wolves in Crescent City, but it's something specifically about the Fender. So that's kind of a question. The exact quote is, her jaw tightened, the older tattoo on her neck, the horned grinning wolf that served as the sigil for the pack of devils, rippling with tension. So again, I just read the quote of Tamlin's beast form. It's also not just the tattoo. Like, Tamlin has the same instincts as the wolves. So in Crescent City, Bryce says, Danica's trying to protect Bryce. She says Danica had said as much several times, unable to stop that alpha wolf's instinct to protect at all costs. And what Feyre says about Tamlin in Mist and Fury is, and I think what happened to him to us under the mountain broke him, perhaps more than it had broken me. The drive to protect at all costs, even my own well-being. I think he wanted to stifle it, but he couldn't. He couldn't let go of it. So, like, it's not just that his beast form is their sigil. Like, he has all these wolf instincts, right? Like, he has all the instincts that the wolves have. And again, in Crescent City, we find out that the wolves were kind of created by the Asteri, engineered by the Asteri to be these soldiers, these alpha soldiers that would kind of protect at all costs. Like, all these, what we see as toxic traits in Tamlin were actually, like, bred into the wolves.
Yeah.
Tamlin is not a wolf, so I'm not saying that excuses his behavior.
But he turns all of his sentries into wolves.
But he turns all of his sentries into wolves, too. And Feyre is also constantly describing herself as a wolf, which I find
she
so
sees a wolf-like
puzzling.
creature in the Ouroboros.
In the Ouroboros, right. I think there's a lot more to talk about there. But yeah, this idea of Tamlin being a wolf and Feyre also being a wolf. I don't have a concrete theory on this one. This was more just like pointing out these connections on our crazy whiteboard. But yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting time horizons between these books, right? It's not super clear who
it's not clear
could be descended from versus an ancestor of, because like our timelines are all messed up. Like, we think that the characters in A Court of Thorns and Roses are living at the same time as the characters in Crescent City. And so then does there need to, like, is there a split in bloodlines happening?
Well, we're told, and again, I haven't fully done a Crescent City reread, so if I'm wrong, come at me. But we're literally told the Fendir specifically are like bred by the Asteri. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so maybe it was bred out of them. I don't know.
Right. Like, so was Tamlin kind of the original alpha here? And they were like, we want to take what we see as the worst, most toxic parts of him and turn that into the Fendir. I don't know how that would work, but there's clearly some connection here that Sarah J. Maas wants us to make.
Yeah.
But we don't have nearly enough right now to make.
And he would have to be, I mean, he would have to be the descendant of that, right? Because the Daglin were like there 15,000 years ago or something.
But we don't know. Yes, the Daglin were there 15,000 years ago. The Asteri arrived on Midgard 15,000 years ago. So, like, the idea is that the Daglin left. I guess the idea is the Daglin left the Fey homeworld and came.
Wait,
to
do you
Midgard.
think the Daglin and the Asteri are different?
No.
Okay.
No, they're the same. Yeah, I think that's confirmed.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, and the Asteri are
so
always
then the
trying to find their way
Daglin would
back.
have been the breeders in this case.
Yeah.
Like, if they were breeding foot soldiers. And so maybe, like, I don't know, maybe Tamlin's just a big crossbreed. I don't know.
I mean, that would explain his inability to control his rage. I started this episode saying there's absolutely no excuse for his behavior, and now I'm giving an excuse.
It's more of an explanation.
An explanation. I mean, if he's literally bred for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering if people are going to like these theories or think we're completely insane, as per usual.
I don't know.
This is your first episode with us. Welcome. This is kind of what it's like.
Yeah.
All right. Precog Corner?
Precog Corner.
All right. For our new listeners, since this is our first Precog Corner of our new season, Precog Corner it's a Empyrean thing. It just means like looking into the future. So these are our, and I'm going to start telling you right now that I cheated this Precog Corner, and this is not what I'm doing. But typically with Precog Corner, we use this as a corner to make crazy predictions about what will happen in these books in the future. It is kind of a choose your own adventure. For the rest of the episodes, we ask ourselves the same questions. This one, we can go in whatever direction we want. So Ronnie, do you want to go first this week?
Yeah. I don't know how this is going to go. All right. So Tamlin, very notably, has not had a mate revealed in this series, right? There is a super popular theory out there in the world and the internet that Tamlin's mate was Amarantha. I think Tamlin's mate was... Precog Corner theories are crazy. Okay, so just let that be known. Like, if you're new here, like,
yes,
and you're like, oh my god, there's no way this is true. I don't usually think my Precog Corner theories are true. Okay, but
yeah, this is our safe space for our most insane theories with very little evidence.
Yeah, but we talked about how Tamlin's family could have been connected with Amarantha. Amarantha and Tamlin's father were friends. We know that mates can have kind of big age gaps. I think Tamlin's mate was Amarantha, except Amarantha was dead before this book ever started. I don't think this needs a big reveal because I think we've already talked about this and everybody who's read all 3 books knows it, I think. But the King of Hybern and Amarantha are most likely Valg, which is a parasitic species that occupies human hosts in Throne of Glass. So the reasons we think this, in Throne of Glass, the Valg King is also occupies a nameless king. The King of Hybern is nameless. Valg-occupied hosts have black eyes. Both the king and Amarantha have black eyes, and both die by being beheaded. Both Amarantha and the King of Hybern die by being beheaded, and that is how you kill Valg. I think that Amarantha was Tamlin's mate at one point, and then she was occupied. I think she specifically potentially could be occupied by a Stygian spider. Her eyes were described as black and unnatural, like inhuman. Her physical description is her red gold hair was neatly braided and woven through her golden crown, the deep color enriching her snow-white skin, which in turn set off her ruby lips. But while her ebony eyes shone, there was something that sucked at her beauty, some kind of permanent sneer to her features that made her allure seem contrived and cold. To paint her would have driven me to madness. The adder also literally says she has pincers. Whether they're her pincers or her own staff, the adder says, and you better hold your tongue or milady will do so for you and her pincers are not kind. I don't know that he was talking specifically about Amarantha here or Amarantha's, like, minions or maybe Amarantha's superior, but, like, occupied by Valg in some capacity. So I think she could have been Tamlin's mate and Amarantha died inside her body while the Valg host occupied it, which we know has happened in Throne of Glass. And so she tried to retain Amarantha's possessor, whoever that is, tried to retain a mating bond with Tamlin, maybe even occupied the body because she wanted to be mated to Tamlin, but couldn't. And that's why he has devolved into this, like, frankly, absolute wreck after he kills Amarantha, because Amarantha was never Amarantha in this book.
Okay, so you think the triggering event for Tamlin's... But Tamlin loves Feyre. Like Rhys says, Tamlin still loves you.
You can love somebody and not be their mate.
No, I know, but yeah, I guess that's true.
And have another mate. Like, we see Elaine kind of doing that with Azriel a little bit.
I'm shocked you dropped this theory in this episode. I thought this would be an Amarantha episode theory for sure.
I just think I think it ties more to Tamlin's actions than to Amarantha. Like, yeah. I mean, Amarantha... We need to talk about her being Valg in her episode, but...
Yeah, okay. So you think Tamlin was the true Amarantha's mate?
Real Amarantha's mate.
Real Amarantha's
OG
mate.
Amarantha. Faye Amarantha's mate.
Yeah.
Which, like, imagine that horror. Like, your mate being occupied by Valg, and then, like ruling your
Yeah.
nation and cursing you, and like you have to face her every day. Like maybe that's why he couldn't do it. Like maybe that's why it was too much for him. It's like I can't be around you and look at your face every day and know it's not you.
You're giving me all these reasons to sympathize with Tamlin when I said at the beginning of the episode I would never forgive him.
This episode is about Tamlin. To be clear, this theory is about Tamlin, not about Amarantha.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to not think that. I like
mean, I
that
think it's a long
theory
shot.
way better than just the standard Amarantha was Tamlin's mate. I think there's absolutely no evidence for Amarantha as we see her being Tamlin's mate.
Well, yeah, and if Amarantha is occupied by Valg, like Valg don't have mates. They're parasites.
Cool. I like that.
What is your precog theory?
I'm going to use this to debunk a theory, if
Okay.
that's okay, about
Yep.
Lucien and Tamlin.
Okay.
Okay. So the theory, we talked about how we know that Tamlin can turn himself into other people because Feyre turns herself into Ianth. We know we've talked about how Tamlin can turn other people into other people, given this train of thought, because we know he can shift other people into wolves, so he can shift other people into other people, theoretically. The theory is, for whatever reason, at the King of Hybern's palace, at the end of, this is actually also about Tamlin's mate, at the end of A Court of Mist and Fury, for whatever reason, Tamlin and Lucien have switched places. So Tamlin has shifted Lucien into looking like Tamlin, and Tamlin has shifted himself into looking like Lucien. I have no fucking idea why they would have done this. But that is the theory.
That would be so crazy because of how much of Lucien we see.
Okay. So
Like,
this is
Yeah.
so this is the
That'd be
theory. So the
insane.
theory is when Elaine comes out of the cauldron and Lucien says, "You're my mate," it's really Tamlin saying it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tamlin and Elaine are
Yeah.
mates, which there's a lot of spring imagery with Elaine,
Yeah.
right? Like
She loves her
the
gardens.
guards. She loves the gardens. Her shields are an iron fence covered with, I think, roses, like covered.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of spring imagery. I understand why people think Elaine and Tamlin might be mates. This doesn't work at all because we see Lucien use his curse breaker power when he is in the King of Hybern, when he is in Hybern.
But
And
yeah.
fire, right. And we know that we are talking about this because Lucien's true father is Helion, who is Helion's spellbreaker, right? Not the King of Autumn. He has firepower from his mother, but this is a scene, and it's not confirmed, you have to read between the lines, but this is a scene where we see him use his spellbreaker power. So the King of Hybern has Tamlin, Feyre, and Lucien leashed with white hot magic when they're throwing Elaine into the cauldron. Tamlin cannot break free from this magic. So the quote is, Tamlin strained against the collar of light on his neck around his wrist. His golden power flailed to no avail. So Tamlin cannot get out of it. Lucien does get out of it. So there was a flare of light and a scrape, and then Lucien was stalking toward Elaine, freed of his restraints. Tamlin remained leashed on the ground, a gag of white iridescent magic in his mouth now. The reason that Lucien can do this is because he is Helion Spellbreaker's son, right? So there is literally no way that Tamlin and Lucien have switched places here. It does not make any sense. This is another secret power that Lucien has, but it is not a secret power that Tamlin has. That is not a scenario where Tamlin and Lucien have switched places, but as we previously talked about, Tamlin can literally be anyone. So we should keep an eye out for that. I really like the idea that he was the merchant who sold them the ash arrow, that he was potentially the mercenary. If he was the mercenary, that would actually make a ton of sense because that's how he finds out who Feyre is. Fuck, I love that idea. I'm going with that Tamlin's the mercenary.
Tamlin being puppeteer for Feyre's entire life is currently occupying 95% of my brain power right now.
Yeah, because he also talks about, well, what does he call them? He calls them the Martax, who we never see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who look a heck of a lot like him also.
Like him. Like his beast form.
Yeah.
And like he wouldn't know what humans do and don't actually like see necessarily. I kind of really like that idea that Tamlin is the mercenary. Okay, maybe that's my Precog Corner theory.
Tamlin is the mercenary.
Tamlin is the mercenary. That's how he finds out that Feyre is the one who killed. Because think about this.
Yeah.
Andros hasn't come back, but he doesn't know what happened. Andros doesn't come back. He doesn't know what's happened to Andros.
Yeah.
But he figures a human has killed Andros.
Yeah, so he goes to the market and he buys the hide.
Goes to the market and he buys the pelt. And that's how he finds out that Andros is dead and who killed him. And
it's probably a good way to honor Andros too, since he knew him and liked him.
Right. And he knew that Feyre skinned him.
Yeah.
How would he know that? He says you killed him and you skinned him, right? He'd only know that if he knew about the pelt. And he gives Feyre way more money than it's worth. And we know Tamlin's big on just giving people a ton of money. Okay, Tamlin's a mercenary. Tamlin shifted himself into the mercenary. That's my Precog Corner theory.
Okay. But I agree with you that I think there's something going on, and I want to talk about it when we talk about Lucien and Elaine. Like, I think there's something interesting about that particular mating bond, but I don't think it's because Tamlin is secretly Elaine's mate and secretly Lucien. Like, we've seen too much of Lucien.
That's not.
And we've seen too much of Tamlin also.
I don't think it's crazy that we actually end up in a world where Elaine and Tamlin are mates, and that part of Tamlin's redemption story is Elaine. I would hate it, but I could see her doing it.
So then what's Lucien? What's Lucien? Not Elaine's mate.
Well, we've had a faked mating bond before.
Yeah, that's also where I went, but I didn't think that it would lead to Elaine and Tamlin. I
want to be so clear. I'm going to plant my flag in the sand right now. I am team Elaine and Asriel. I want it so bad. I think they're great together, but is she going to give us 3 for 3, or would that be a little weird? I don't know.
To have the 3 Archeron sisters with the 3 Bat Boys seems a little on the nose.
I agree.
But I do think it's not talked about enough that mating bonds are not always right. Like, that's why I said what I said about Rhys and Feyre is like, yes, Cassian and Nesta is shaping up nicely, but like, Rhys's parents were terrible for each other.
So were Tamlin.
Tamlin's parents were terrible for each other. Like, the mating bond is not always right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll certainly talk more about that. We have a lot to talk about with mates in general.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
What are you reading?
I'm reading A Court of Frost and Starlight. What are you reading?
Lovely. I finished The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Nice. How was that?
I would give it a B+. I would give it a B+. The beginning and the end are wonderful. It definitely drags in the middle. It's a little repetitive, and you're kind of like, the story isn't moving forward. Time's moving forward, but the story's not really moving forward. I cried a lot in the last 50 pages. I really liked it. I think you would like it. I think you should read it. It is a very emotional book. It gets very raw at the end, and it really is about like legacy and the human condition and like what is life and what is the point of it all. And it's about art. And as I mentioned, there is a character who's almost beat for beat Rhys. I would B+. I would say it's good. No,
I need to read something else, but unfortunately, I think if you're not new here, you probably have either know or have picked up already that I unfortunately work a lot. So I'm not currently reading as much as I have read in the past. I'll put it that way. But I'm excited to like pick up regular books again. I think I told you I'm going to do a non-fantasy. So I'm going to finish One Dark Window because I did get like far enough along that I'm like kind of hooked, so I need to finish it. But I need to finish my reread first. And then I'm gonna read a non-fantasy. I need to like remember what those are like.
Yeah. This one's not really a fantasy. It takes place in the real world. There's a little bit of magic, but
magic. Okay.
There's no magic system. There is a god who can grant a wish. That's the extent of it. Yeah.
Got it.
That's pretty much it.
Cool.
All right. That's the end of our first deep dive on ACOTAR. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you knew what you were in for. If you're new here, I hope you enjoyed our particular brand of theorizing. We are on social media. We are Dragons in the Details Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Our email is dragonsinthedetailspod@gmail.com. And we are on Discord at Dragons in the Details Pod server. Everything is linked in our show notes and also linked in our social media bios. So you should be pretty easy to find us. Please write to us. We love hearing from you guys. Really brings a smile to our day. Ronnie and I both start our days drinking coffee and responding to comments from you guys, which is a really nice way to start the day most of the time. Not always, but most of the time it's great.
Not always, but mostly.
No, I think if you're actually listening to the podcast, we love talking to you.
We love your comments. It's the people who don't.
It's the people who don't that we're like,
Not all the people who don't. A select few.
Yeah, but I think that's it. We will be back next week with more theories. Love you.
Thanks for listening. Love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening.